disconnected my backup beeper. I don't feel like a certified forklift operator anymore. Andy's on his way with the crimper. Gonna get started in front of me. That's right, folks. It's time to put some cottonseed in the ground. Are conditions perfect? No. Does the forecast look great? No, it does not. Are we getting too late in the planting window to get started planting cotton? Yeah, it is. So that's why we're going. Conditions aren't perfect, but they are doable. Forecast doesn't look great. We got potential severe storms rolling in 3 days from now. Could get no rain, could get a lot of rain, could get tornadoes. We don't know. I do know one thing though. It's May 14th. We haven't put a single cottonseed in the ground. Our insurance deadline is May 20th. So at some point you gotta get started. If I waited for everything to be completely 100% perfect, probably be first part of June and well, be too late to plant cotton. So we're gonna give her a roll. Hopefully everything turns out all right. Well, I tell you what, first bag of cottonseed open, that smell. If you know, you know. If you don't know, I wish you'd experience the smell I grew up with every spring. I mean, there's nothing like the smell of treated cottonseed. All right, now my goal today is to get about 110 acres planted. And each one of these bags holds 230,000 seeds. I'm planting 37,000 seeds per acre. So according to my calculations, I need right at 18 bags. So I've already gone over and measured out a half a bag in each hopper, and now we're going back and dumping a full bag in each hopper. Now 110 acres might be a pretty optimistic goal for the first day. I got faith everything's gonna go like it should though. Not gonna have any problems. Now I would go ahead and load up a lot more seed, but I've already got a test plot scheduled for first thing tomorrow morning, get them planted. So I wanna be as close to empty a seed as possible so we don't have to do a whole lot of vacuuming out. Now I also can't forget our micro-knock. Now I touted all its benefits on my corn planting videos, not going to go through all that again, but our testing with cottonseed with micro-knock has been a little bit more hit or miss than it has been with corn. 2 years ago we tried it. We saw like 150 or 170 pounds per acre benefit. Now last year we didn't see any kind of benefit from it or the other biological we tried. Of course, it was so dang hot and dry that doesn't surprise me. You know, if there's no moisture in the soil, you know, the microbes and everything are going to become dormant and not going to do anything. And I think that's what we saw last year. But the year before, I mean, we saw some big results out of it. So like I said in corn planting video, this is relatively cheap, $4.65 an acre, and you know, with a potential payback of 150 pounds an acre. To me, it's worth it. We're gonna go ahead and throw it on in. All right, we're all loaded up and headed to the field. Hopefully that time it took me to load up a seed and micro-knock gave Kelly and Andy plenty of time to get in front of me. I know Kelly's in front of me. You know, she's spraying a 100-foot swath. Andy's job is going to kind of be the bottleneck of planting cotton like it always is. You know, Kelly's covering 100 feet. I'm covering 38 feet with every pass, and Andy's covering 19 feet with every pass. So theoretically, he's got to go twice as fast as I do just to stay in front of me. But he's had about an hour, 15-minute head start, so hopefully he'll be far enough out in front of me, and he'll be able to stay out in front of me for the rest of the day. All right, it looks like Kelly's folded up. She just got done, and then Andy's back there over the top of the hill somewhere, but he's already got my inrows laid off and getting started on the main part of the field. Looks like the Crimper's doing a fair job over here. Now this,
you got a bag or something caught on the planter.
Now this isn't going to be a good farm to judge the performance of our newly rebuilt Crimper. The cover crop on this farm was aerial seeded, and I actually put my corn mix on here because I was anticipating planting corn, then decided this winter to put cotton on this farm. But it's kind of got a thin stand. It looks like there's a lot out here, but the plants are kind of scattered. They just kind of got tall. So roller crimpers are not very effective whenever you don't have a good, thick, mature stand. But overall, I mean, it looks like it's doing a pretty admirable job for what's out here. The only problem is you see where it's like really thin right there. You know, that Crimper's kind of chewing the ground up a little bit, but it's just the nature of the beast. Not too much I can do about that. All right, got our meters loaded. Let's try her out. Everything's looking good. 37,000 population, not taking much down for us at all. We're planting shallow, and there's plenty of moisture in the soil. All right, we planted a little ways around here. Let's check and see what the seed depth is. Like I just said, we're planting shallow. One of the mistakes I've made in past years is trying to get every seed in the ground, this cover crop, and putting them deep, and sometimes they come up, other times they've struggled. Well, there's the first seed. I mean, she just barely in the ground, about 1/2 of an inch. Yeah, that might be about 3/4 of an inch. That's about where we want them. So right here is a cotton seed. Let me show you just why they need to be planted as shallow as possible. Now I just cut it open lengthways, and what you basically see in there that I cut through, that's 2 cotyledons. There is basically, you know, no starch, no energy in that seed. It's basically 2 leaves that unfurl. You know, it's not like a soybean seed or a corn seed that's got plenty of energy come up. Cotton's got about the wimpiest seed of any crop I know of, and it looks for any excuse not to come up. So that's one reason why we've had such a hard time getting a stand of cotton the last few years. When you get inclement weather conditions, you know, cottonseed just can't withstand those conditions. Also, you get it too deep, you know, it just doesn't have the energy to push up, especially if it's dealing with inclement weather conditions. But that's why, you know, disease, these funguses and everything can attack the seed, rot the seed in the ground so easily, is because there's just not much there, and it doesn't take much to go wrong with a cotton seed and trying to get it up. Well, I believe everything's set right on the planter. Let's knock out some acres here. Well, back here at the shop, as you can imagine, that's not a good sign. We made a few rounds, and I noticed I kept on losing air pressure in my air tank a little quicker than what I should have been. Now, as I'm using this thing, I mean, air pressure is going to drop because, you know, got stuff on here using air pressure, but it was dropping quicker than it should have. So anyway, it took me a while, finally tracked it down. You see all this rust right here, right there? What happens where my air tank is welded to the mounts right here, I guess all the vibration stuff is started to crack and pull away, and it's leaking out of a crack right there. And can't really see a crack right there, but it's, I mean, it's got to be coming from there too. So anyway, we're going to get the welder out, put a quick bead of weld there, and hopefully that will stop the problem. Now, I don't know how thick this tank is. I can't imagine it's going to be very thick, so hopefully I won't make the problem worse and blow a big hole in there. Alright, not the prettiest job, but it ought to hold. Let's get over there and tractor test it out, see if it holds air pressure. Alright, air compressor on. Should build up to about 150, 155 psi and hold still. Kicked off and she's dropping way worse than before. We got something else going on. Yeah, I can feel it here coming out. Yeah, actually right there. Well, because I want to grind that wheel back off and try it again. All right, let's try this again. All right, pressure's rising a little bit quicker this time. Maybe we got her sealed up good. All right, moment of truth here, about to kick off. There it comes, she's still dropping. Yeah, I mean, there's a little pinhole there. Try to put another beta weld alongside it. Well, I still got a slight leak, but it's back up in there, and I mean, I just can't get to it to weld it properly. I tried to throw some weld up in there, but there's still a little bit of air getting by, but I think it's going to be good enough for now. I mean, it is slowly leaking air, but not leaking air as bad as it was, so hopefully the air compressor can keep up, and I can't afford to spend any more time messing with this. We'll just have to wait for a rainy day and then either take the tank off and grind all that stuff off and try and weld it properly, or see if I can source just a replacement tank. So anyway, that's that. Back to the field. Well, we've been running for a couple hours now, and everything's running smoothly. Maybe we got all our snafus worked out. We got about 35 acres planted on this farm so far, so we ought to make pretty quick work of it, get moved up to Clinton. I'm slowly catching up to Andy, but he's picked up the pace a little bit. I think he's finally gotten the hang of running that crimper again, and you can tell it's doing a pretty dang good job considering how thin the cover crop is out here, and I haven't seen any of those new blades laying off in the ground, so that's a bright spot. Maybe we did everything just right on it, but I can guarantee you without those new blades it would not be doing that good of a job. Most of that stuff would be springing right back up based upon my experience the last couple of years. So when we get over to Clinton, we're going to get into some of that drilled cover crop, and I mean, whoa, it's thick out there. On that farm, I didn't get a great kill on my burn down strips, and let me tell you, that stuff is thick. So I'd be interested to see how good it's going to do over there. I don't think I ever told y'all what variety I've got in the planter, but what we're starting out with is Phytogen 360. Been planting it quite a few years, and one of my all-time favorite varieties. Back on this farm for another year. It's not the highest yielding variety I've ever planted, but it's good and consistent. When it's ready to pick, it's absolutely beautiful. Actually, it makes you think that there's more out there than what there really is. But it's a good, consistent yielder that goes anywhere, and Phytogen is known for having really strong emergence, which in the conditions that we plant in can be very beneficial. It usually emerges quite a bit better than what Delta Pine does. In years past, that's been because Phytogen's got a little bit bigger seed, so got a little bit more energy in it, whereas Delta Pine's known for having a real small seed. But I checked all my bags that was delivered this year, and actually Delta Pine's got bigger seed than what I'm used to in the past, so maybe we'll have a pretty good emergence out of it also. But we got 4 different varieties we're going to try. You know, Phytogen 360, it's going to be probably about 35% of our acreage, and then we're going to switch over to Delta Pine 2115. It'll be about another 35% of our acreage, and I'll talk more about it when I start planting. Then we got 2 different Thrive owns that's going to comprise about, you know, the last 30% of our acreage. We're going to try it in some specialty spots. Well, it started off this morning cloudy, then it got sunny, now it's cloudy again. And that's kind of screwing up my plans, because I talked a little bit when we were planting the soybeans. You know, we're switching up our burn down a little bit because of the thick cover crop. Now, we didn't do it on this field. On this field, Kelly sprayed a mixture of paraquat, and we're switching to Warrant as our pre-emerge. We're not putting down any brake this year. Brake's been, you know, very expensive. Like, I think it was around $21, $22 an acre last year, and I just didn't think we were getting a whole lot of activity out of it. And anyway, part of the reason of that was that, you know, we had our brake mixed in with our paraquat. We're spraying it on all this cover crop. The cover crop's taking up the paraquat to kill it. Makes sense that it's also taking in the brake. Even though the brake doesn't have any activity on the plant's still absorbing it to where that chemical can't get down to the soil to give us the pre-emergent activity. You know, we were spending a lot of money per acre, and I don't think that really very much of it was actually making it to the soil where, you know, it could give us any kind of benefit. So this year I decided we're going to make 2 burn down passes. You know, Kelly's already gone over this with paraquat, and then that paraquat works real good when the sun's shining because it's activated by sunlight. So she's going to spray it. It's going to start dying real quick. Andy's going to crimp it, and then hopefully within, you know, maybe later that day or at most a day later, come back and spray the Warrant over the top. That way the cover crop will be dead. The Warrant will actually be laying on the plant, but when we get a rain, it should wash it off the plant and into the soil. You know, that's my theory anyway. However, we need sunlight to kill this cover crop so it won't be able to take it up. And with this cloudy weather really slowing down it dying. It was starting to die in a hurry while the sun was out. Now it got cloudy. It's kind of really slowed down. Like I said, on this farm it didn't matter because she mixed the Warrant in with the Gramoxone, because there's, you know, the cover crop stands real thick. A lot of it is going to get to the soil anyway. But on the next farm that she's on, she's already, you know, she's working on spraying it with paraquat, so we need it to die in a hurry so then she can come back with the Warrant. Like I said, we're not using brake anymore. We decided to switch to Warrant, and Warrant's going to provide a few benefits. For one, it's about half the cost of brake, so, you know, we should be saving $10, $11 an acre there. It's going to have activity on pigweeds. Maybe not quite as good as brake, but it's still going to have activity on pigweeds. But the main thing is that what we started seeing, especially last year, we're having a lot of problems with like barnyard grass and jungle rice coming in our fields, especially around the edges. And that stuff is hard to kill, and I don't think we were getting very much activity out of the brake on it. But that Warrant, which is acidichlor, is kind of a form of metallochlor or dual. You know, its claim to fame is that it's really good on grasses. So hopefully this will help us start controlling our jungle rice and barnyard grass problem pre-emerge rather than having to come back post-emerge and try and kill it then, which can definitely be more difficult. So, but the labeled rate of Warrant is 48 ounces an acre. It's a high use rate. So what we're doing is we're splitting it up. We're doing 24 ounces now at planting, and then we come back post-emerge spraying for thrips, or maybe a little bit later, then we'll come back with the other 24 ounces per acre to give us the full rate. So that ought to spread the residual activity out a little bit longer. Plus, you know, the Warrant, when you're spraying it over the top of cotton, it can be hard on the cotton. It can ding it up and burn it some, you know, especially especially if it's hot and humid, there's a lot of moisture in the soil. It really seems to bang it up even more then. So by, you know, putting out half the rate now and then half over the top, hopefully we won't run into the issue of dinging our crop up and slowing it down, because right now that's the last thing we need to do. You know, we're getting a late start on planting cotton. You know, we sure don't need to slow it down any on, you know, getting fruit on there and maturing out and everything else. So on paper, my plan looks really good. In reality, we'll just have to see. All right, we just got done with this farm, but I've relegated myself to looking for a missing planter part on this entire farm. Now, I'm not going to be walking up and down every row here because there's no need in that. We're going to use a little bit of detective work to try and determine where exactly it went missing at. Well, I don't guess I need to quit my day job as a farmer and go be a detective because apparently my detective skills are crap.